Empath did not come into this world to be victims. We came to be warriors. Be brave, stay strong. We need all hands on deck. Hi, welcome back to Light and Shadows. I'm your host, JF. This quote was from Anton Saint Martin. He's an author and well-recognized psychic medium. Today, I want to talk about a subject that I absolutely relate to, the empath, because I am one of them. I will first define what an empath is, and then I will talk about the life stage of an empath. So sit tight and let's explore this. An empath is a person with a high sensitivity to emotions, energy, and physical sensation of others, often absorbing these feelings as their own. Unlike standard empathy, empaths feel everything to an extreme, requiring downtime to recharge from emotional exhaustion. They are intuitive, nurturing, and compassionate, but may struggle with boundaries, burnout, and emotional overload. Key traits of an empath: emotional absorption. They act like sponges, taking on negative energy, fear, or pain from others, which can be overwhelming. High sensitivity, deeply affected by the environmental stimuli, including noise, smell, and intense social situation. Intuition and deep connection. Possess a strong gut feeling and can connect deeply with people, animal, and nature. Need for solitude. Requires regular quiet downtimes to recover from social interaction and avoid being overstimulated. Compassion fatigue, prone to burnout from overhelping others at the cost of their own well-being. Now, the reason I relate to that is because I feel all that. And when we talk about the stages later on, I'll tell you what stage I'm at. But emotional absorption, the first time I recall getting overwhelmed from emotional absorption, I was about 10 years old. My dad had brought me to church. That was Christmas Eve. That would have been around 1977 or whatever. 10 minutes after entering the church, I felt faint. I was about to pass out, and I didn't know why. So Dad brought me outside, got some fresh air. And we thought it was, just too many people. Anyway, it wasn't. And I did not realize that until years and years after, that I was being affected by everybody's emotion. Like, it was packed. I was feeling everything. And that was awful because I didn't know what was going on. High sensitivity, yeah, I'm an HSP person for sure, highly sensitive person. And we're not talking about uh, like sensitive as in like I cry. It's sensitive to the point where I actually perceive other people's emotion and energy. Intuition and deep connection, same thing. Because I feel people's energy, I'm very, 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 very intuitive. Like, sometimes it annoys me. I'm so intuitive because there's stuff that I don't want to know that I get to know anyway. People lying to me, I know right away. It's up to me whether I say something or not. And we'll go back to that when we talk about the stages of an empath. Need for solitude, absolutely. I've put myself in semi-seclusion since last mid-August, and that has done wonders for me. After my nervous system being so overexposed and tortured and you name it, that actually worked for me and almost get rid of all my anxiety because I don't have to deal with other people mostly. Compassion fatigue, prone to burnout? Yeah, because I would go and help everybody and I would forget about me. So yeah, it's a real thing. So let's jump on the next, the empath versus the highly sensitive person. While often used interchangeably, an HSP is sensitive to sensory input, light, sound, while an empath, who is likely also an HSP, specifically absorb the emotions of others. I have both. There are several primary types of empath, and I actually fall into 4 or 5 of these categories. 5. Emotional empath, I fall into that. The most common type. These individuals absorb the emotion, energy, and moods of those around them, often feeling happiness or anger as it were their own. And that's true, especially people that I've had a strong connection to. They don't even have to be near me. If their mood tanks, I know it. It's crazy. I just know it. Physical and medical empaths. They are attuned to the physical bodies of others, often sensing or experiencing another person's physical pain, illness, or symptoms. I don't have that. Intuitive empath. I have that. Also called claircognizant. highly perceptive. They just know things, reading energy, intentions, and underlying vibes instantly upon entering a space or meeting someone. But this is the spooky part because that's happened to me so many times. I'll meet someone and within 2 minutes, I know exactly what that person's about. I know if they lied to me. I know if they're evading questions. It's the micro expressions that empaths are able to recognize and the nonverbal cues. So sometimes we just know something, which is called claircognizant, but it's not magic. It's just that we perceive more than most people. Animal empath, I'm that too. These individuals have a deep, often telepathic connections to animals, understanding their needs, feelings, and emotions intuitively. I've approached, let's get an example, several dogs that were deemed dangerous or their owners that told me that, they're reactive. And you know what? Every single time I approach these animals, they're in love with me. They lick me, they jump on me, they want to play. Yeah, big bad dog, all right. But that's just me. That's how animals usually react to me. Earth and nature empath. Deeply connected to the planet. They sense changes in nature, weather, or natural disaster. Like a lot of them will feel anxiety before a storm. Not me. Yoga empath. I learned that today, which is the mirror empath. I am definitely one of those. Considered the sacred clown in some Native American traditions, which is like the Joker in tarot, in spirituality. Same thing. They mirror the behavior or emotions of others to disrupt, challenge, and promote growth. After what happened to me last year, that's what I did. I became a mirror. I reflected her actions. Worked. Plant empath, attuned to the needs of flora. These individuals have a green thumb and can sense the energetic needs of a plant and nature. Definitely not me. Dream empath, highly sensitive to the dream world. They often remember their dreams vividly and may find prophetic or symbolic meaning in them. Not me. I don't know when the last time I had a dream or remember having a dream. I know it's weird. That's just, I don't know why. Psychometric empath, still not me. Able to receive energy, memories, or impressions from inanimate objects, photographs, or places. Yes, these do exist. The dark empath. Now, that's controversial because the dark empath is a new term. It was actually coined earlier by Carl Jung, who called it a super empath, not a dark empath. It's controversial because it's someone with high emotional intelligence, and high empathy, but who could use that understanding to manipulate or benefit themselves rather than to help. That's why it's called a dark empath. Like me, I am a dark empath. However, I do not use my gifts for darkness. I use it for light. I kind of refer to that as, the whole Star Wars thing, light side, dark side of the Force, same thing. I'm the Jedi because I found balance after my healing and I was able to integrate my shadows. Therefore, I have control over them. And therefore, yes, as a dark empath, I could absolutely play with others and go evil on them. But I don't. What I did is I established firm boundaries and I respect those because I learned to respect myself. So if you hear the term dark empath, it's not necessarily a bad thing. The other thing about the dark empath, they are the banes of narcissists. A narcissist will never be able to defeat a dark empath. Not going to happen. Challenge and management. Empath may struggle to maintain personal boundaries and can become targets for emotional vampires. Narcissists. Narcissists actually prefer empath at their beginning stage because they're easy to manipulate. To manage this, empath often needs to practice self-care, establish strict emotional boundaries, and ensure they have a safe, quiet space to recharge. Because as an empath, we all know we want what's best for others. We will sacrifice ourselves for others. We will go without so that another can have. Because we've been there and we don't like the feeling of people being in misery. So therefore, we usually step in. But we do it too much. And when we do it too much, it causes a burnout. And then you repeat and you repeat and you repeat until you learn. And when you learn, you do set these boundaries. You do have your place to recharge. You don't try to just go help first. You observe. If that person is worthy, if you have the time, then yes, you will help. But that's it. The empath journey. So This is the second part. Based on the interpretations of Carl Jung's work, the empath stage is a journey from conscious emotional absorption to conscious empowered witnessing. This is what I was talking about just a few seconds ago. Jungian perspectives suggest that empaths, often referred to in this context as the wounded mirror or the wounded warriors or oracles in tarot, go through stages of awakening, starting with deep emotional burden and ending with the ability to hold space for the world's pain without being consumed by it. This is what I was talking. Here is the stage of the empathic journey according to his perspective. The wounded mirror, wounded warrior, the unconscious stage. The sponge. In the early stage, the empath unconsciously absorbs the emotions of individuals, families, and the collective, often believing these emotions are their own. The story I was talking about earlier in church, when I had to get out when I was 10, that's what I was doing. I was absorbing everyone's energy, everyone's mood, everyone's feelings. The wound. This is marked by deep, often unexplained feelings of depression, anxiety, or guilt, or actually residual trauma or ancestral memories. And also, you can also be feeling other people's anxiety or guilt or whatever. And this takes a lot of work to recognize that the emotions you're feeling are not your own. I'll give you an example. I was about 2 months ago, and I was in the living room. I was working on something, a puzzle or whatever it was. I don't remember. I was coloring, actually. And all of a sudden, I was feeling this intense anxiety and guilt and just a mixed bag of feelings. And I was like, why am I feeling this? What's wrong with me? And then I realized these aren't my feelings. I'm feeling somebody else's feelings. So I had to learn to shield myself from that. And I can maybe do another podcast later on to talk about shielding. But yeah, I had to learn to shield myself from emotions of others. The savior complex. The empath feels a compulsive need to heal, fix others, often leading to codependency and exhaustion. A good friend of mine, actually one of my best friends, reminded me of that a few months ago. And he looked at me and he's like, stop trying to save people. He's right. Absolutely right. So I stopped doing that. Nobody but yourself can save yourself. And that's all there is to it. So that was number one, the unconscious stage. Usually it's from birth to, maybe your 20s. The delusionment and shadow work, the breakdown. The empath reaches a breaking point where their old codependent and oversensitive ways of functioning no longer works, often triggered by betrayal or extreme exhaustion. In my case, facing the shadow. The empath begins to understand that they cannot heal others, only themselves. They start doing shadow work, integrating their own unacknowledged hidden parts, which allows them to stop projecting their needs onto others. This is where I found balance when I integrated my shadows. Setting boundaries, they learn to distinguish their own emotions from the emotions of others, which I talked about just a few seconds ago, which is the beginning of reclaiming their personal power. 3. The awakened witness, the final oracle witness. The mature empath stops being a helper and becomes a witness. They are now able to feel without fixing, understanding without taking responsibility, and love without losing themselves. The alchemist. That's something I talk about in the last podcast on the magician there. That's one of the stages in the magician is the alchemist. They become alchemists of the collective shadow, using their heightened sensitivity to shed light on deep, unconscious societal issues like racism, abuse, trauma, and so on, without absorbing them. What they mean without absorbing them is without getting worked up, getting upset, getting emotional about what you're talking about racism, about trauma, about abuse, anything you'd like to talk about. Before, I used to get highly emotional when I was talking about those things. Now, no, I'm just very rational and I talk about it. I make my points and that's it. I learned that too. The sovereign presence. The final stage is characterized by consciousness gaps, where the empath can no longer tolerate or operate within unconscious, low vibrational environment, meaning they don't want to hang around with low lives. They become solitary sojourners who exist in the twilight between worlds, serving as a beacon of truth rather than a sponge for pain. And this is what I'm doing right now with this podcast. I'm acting as a bridge in order to try to provide information, to provide healing, to provide wisdom. And I can do that now without being emotional about it, which is great. Core component of the final stage. Emotional mastery, feeling everything but choosing what to process. Took me a long time, but I'm there. Presence of power, healing simply by being in a space, holding a field of coherence that allows others to confront their own truth. You don't have to say a thing. I don't have to say a thing. It's just the way it works. Integration, the ability to be a living symbol of wholeness, holding space for both light and shadow. Hence my podcast, Light and Shadows. Okay. That was it for the I hope you enjoyed that. Again, this podcast is me shining my lights for everybody else to be able to see their shadows better and integrate them. The message that I provide, our message of hope, message of healing, message of understanding. And I enjoy doing that. I really do. Like I say every week, if I've helped one person this week, then my job is done. I'm not seeking fame or fortune. I just want to help. And I want to help in a way where I was never able to help before, which is why I started this podcast. So, have you shared your light this week? You always going to say that, didn't you? Have you helped each other? Have you helped your family? Have you helped your coworkers, your neighborhood? What have you done? What have you done this week to make the world a better place? Let me know that in the comments, please. I would love to hear that. So thank you today for joining me in the shadows. I hope you received this episode really well. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that it's going to help some. As always, I wish you love, light, and shadows. Until next week.